Welcome everybody to today's episode, and today I have Sal with from Service All Star, and the reason why Sal is here today is because I want to touch a topic, and the topic is domain, and then from there we're going to jump into how is this domain being used in his throughout his whole digital marketing. In the last episode, I talked about very briefly about the domain, how to be creative when it comes to finding a domain, because as we know, whenever you go to a registrar and you look for that cool name that you had in mind and suddenly someone has it, and so you end up coming across that challenge. Well, now what? Should I pay for thousands of dollars for the domain that someone already has, or should I be creative? And so that's what I want to cover with Sal today, and hopefully we get some feedback on what his experience was. So Sal, now I know that you currently have serviceallstars.net.
Yep.
And obviously in online, it's I guess it's a standard to have .com, company.com, right? What happened when you were purchasing your domain when you did? Why, or how come you didn't get .com but you got .net? What happened?
Well, thanks for having me again, Evie. What had happened is that we looked for serviceallstars.com, but at that time it was taken by a company in Germany that was also called Service All Stars.
Oh.
And so, but years later, I think it was like 2.5 years ago, my friend said, hey, you need to get your .com. You have a .net, .com is better. And I just said, hey, you know what? Let me just go out and search for the .com and see what's up. And I went through the registry, and for sure, I think we had to buy it. Yeah, we had to buy. We did.
You had a broker, huh?
Yeah, we had to buy it through GoDaddy. We bought the domain. It wasn't really that expensive. It's worth more now, I guess. But yeah, that's how we acquired our .com.
But how long did it take?
And now we have .com, .net, .com, and we have the
.co, maybe?
.org, I believe.
.org, gotcha.
Yeah.
But when you purchased .net, how long did it take you to go back and find out that domain was available? What was the time?
Oh, it was a long time. It was maybe 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. By that time, .net had already been developed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So right now that .net is up and running, I'm sure it has SEO, and we know it has SEO ranking. Is your current .com also getting that ranking, or you think that
the .com is getting some sort of ranking? I think based on the .net, but the .com is essentially a redirect to the .net.
Yeah, I think that's what we've been doing with a few marketing strategies. I remember that we had to redirect to from .net to .com. Was it because of the social media or something like that? I don't remember. So now that you have .com, are you already placing those in your marketing materials or on your online presence, or?
Yeah, I mean, we are using the .com in our online directories, Facebook, Instagram, places like that. But are we using the .net? I think only right now, only on the wrap. I would have to check on if on the new wrap they put .com or .net.
But you say you are redirecting that address to the .com then?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the reason why I brought this whole domain deal is because I know, as I mentioned in the intro, that many come across that point where they're ready to set up and have an online presence, and they come across this. So you are gonna be starting a show where you're going to be presenting success. I guess ways.
I don't know if it's a show. I mean, it's a podcast.
What's a podcast show? It's
right.
So I didn't want to say podcast, but a podcast. And in this podcast, you're going to be introducing successful tips, right? And how to avoid certain things or certain challenges that any business may come across. And now my question is, what type of industries are you planning of targeting?
Definitely. I mean, obviously the home services industry, but we're going to touch upon as many industries as we can. It's going to be about success, but really we're probably going to be talking more about failures that led
Uh,
to success. You know what I mean? Because you can't. I truly believe you can't be successful unless you failed. So many numerous times. And you'll see that with every entrepreneur through history.
mhm.
They probably had more failures than successes.
No, I know. I mean,
Um,
so in this podcast, your main points of, I guess, the failures would be uh,
what not to do.
in what areas?
um,
Because you have, well,
I
for
mean,
example, for the HVAC, right? Let's
I mean,
just
in operations and accounting and marketing and in branding and sales.
oh, okay. And the reason why I ask what type of areas, because I know that, for example, us, Bloq Marketing, we also have failures, right? We have, when it comes to selling certain services, we think that those services are going to do well, but when we promote those services, we don't have anything in any leads, and we wonder why. And I think that's one of the things that we as a company also have, those little obstacles, and then that's when we have to change. So you think changing strategies or the way you service clients would help those new companies or companies that are more or less wanting to take that step of growth?
There definitely has to be a want. I mean, a lot of companies are comfortable where they're at, and that's perfectly fine. But I think in our capitalist economy, if you're not growing, you're dying, and that's really what it is, right? I mean, so I think
Eventually gonna
I
die.
think that if you're an entrepreneur, you own a company, you definitely need to think about growth at all times. I mean, if you're every business, I think should be designed to sell. If it's not designed to sell, then there's obviously some kind of you're going to have some type of issue. Assets, I think a business you need to turn it into an asset as quickly as possible. If the business is an asset, then ownership, stakeholders have the ability to um, sell portions of it to maybe expand and grow the business further.
What do you mean an asset? How can you how can a business be an asset? Like what, for
I mean,
example?
businesses really can turn. You could turn I mean, like Coca-Cola, just the logo is real estate. It's probably the most wealthiest real estate value out of anything that you can imagine in the world, right? I mean, that the logo itself is worth so much. So, and that's how you turn a business into an asset, is that you have intellectual properties that the business owns, that can be increases value. I mean, that's just one aspect of it, right? The other aspect of it is what kind of business is it? If it's a local business, what kind of reach does it have locally? Do
Hmm.
people recognize it as a local brand? And that might bring some kind of interest from an investor standpoint to maybe make it more of a regional brand.
Yep.
But if you're not, if your brand is not doesn't hold any value, then whether locally, regionally, or nationally, you're likely not going to get anybody to invest in it.
So I guess based on your experience, then um, the the solution or the way businesses should look at their business is start with branding their image, correct? Or
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, branding is everything. I mean, and if you get to the later stages of the business, 10, 15 years in, and then you think about branding, it's going to be a lot more expensive
yeah, yeah, it is.
to do it.
Yeah.
You want to create the brand before you um, really create the company, the organization.
I mean, what you point out about rebranding is true because it was last year that we rebranded our Bloq Marketing. Because if you notice, the logo is just plain text. I mean, we like it. It was around for, I want to say, 10 years, but I
Wow.
wanted to present something more where color was the focal point, because that's what we do. We create pieces and marketing materials that have a combination of color. And so it took us a while for us to get to that point. Now, it's true what you said, that if someone doesn't focus on their marketing, or I'm sorry, on their branding almost right away, then they are going to have this challenge later on, and it will take a while. And I know many clients are very impatient. Are you impatient, Sal?
I can be.
You can be. Well, I know, because I mean, there's there's certain tasks that I know that we've done, right? And there's real times where we know how long it's going to take us to do certain things, and oftentimes because when it comes to rebranding, I guess some people think that it's something very easy, but it's not. Actually, it takes a while.
I mean, the brand has to be memorable. It has to be able to be inside of, has to stick inside of the heads of the clients in the local area, regional area. It has to hold value. It has to tell a story. That's really how a brand is formed. If it's not memorable, it probably needs to be rebranded.
Yeah.
And companies, rebrand all the time. They'll take a logo. I mean, just look at Apple. Apple has changed its logo so many different times.
Actually, a lot
it's still an Apple, yeah, but it has different iterations of it, yeah, to refresh itself so that it's continuously present in the minds of its clients, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think of phone, you think of Apple right now in the American populace. I mean, it's that crazy, right? If I say phone, you think Apple. Yeah, if I say Apple, you think phone.
Yep.
It's so it's remarkable, but that's the power of the brand that is Apple.
One of the things that you just point out right now is updating constantly, right? We've seen those on websites where there's companies that continue to update their sites. I don't know, maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, to give this new fresh presence. What do you think about that? I mean, is that something that should be considered? We think we think it does, even though we do the work. We like to do the work. We think that clients should have at least a revamp every once in a while.
I mean, I think it depends which, for what company, what industry you're talking about. A Coca-Cola do a rebrand on their red and white logo with the script. I don't think so. Pepsi has done a lot of reiterations of their logo, but then again, they're second to Coca-Cola, right? If you're number one, I mean, why would you need to do that, right?
Well, if you notice, Pepsi has changed the look a few times.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
But not Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
Coca-Cola has always been, because they don't have a need to do that.
I mean, they did spend a lot of money.
If you're talking about local brands, I mean, the cost of rebranding is very high. If you're talking about the home services space, you would have to redo all your trucks. You would have to redo all of your the wraps on the trucks, all your business cards. I mean, it could become very costly. So, does a local service company need rebranding every 3 or 4 years? I don't think so. I mean, maybe once every 10 years, maybe.
Well, I guess you're right on that part, but when it comes to online presence, maybe every so often. Like
if you're talking about a website, a website I think has to be constantly refreshed, maybe on a yearly basis.
Yeah,
at least minimum.
Imagine not doing that every year. It's a lot of work for us. Well, that's something that, as I mentioned in the beginning, whenever a business goes through these type of situations, when finding a name online, well, what happens after you found that name, and then you go, and start applying that to your marketing materials? And so what Sal just gave us, I believe is very vital information, because then it helps any business take the proper measures to either rebrand or have the right name for their business. So Sal,
you guys are getting into branding, right, for companies.
Yeah.
That's what you want to get into, logos
Our services were very minimal. We focused a lot on logos and marketing materials for print. But now we want to take it to the next level where we can actually bring, everything that can help the business.
the entire hub.
Yeah, get promoted, like the wraps, billboards. We've done billboards, but every once in a while. And but mostly it's just brochures and sales sheets that we've done to promote products. And I think now that we've gained that experience, we can start applying what we've done into wraps and online and wherever. And I think by keeping everything consistent, it can help the business stay afloat.
Yeah, I want to say that. I mean, the one major thing that we've probably missed is that if you're going to create a brand, make sure that brand is disruptive, because if the brand's not disruptive, it's just going to blend in with every other brand out there. It's probably not going to stand out. So you have to pick colorways that's not present in your market for that industry. Because you don't want to be just like every other person. I know in the heating and cooling space, it's always red, white, and blue. We just went through a rebrand recently, and our colors are not red, white, and blue. It was a very, very hard choice for me to make. One of the hardest choices I probably ever have to make in my life, actually, because I was so partial with the logo, the colors. Seeing the logo go was one thing,
It
right?
hurts you.
It did, and then it was like I knew it was time to go, right? It was time to retire it, and that was for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was never professionally designed. It was done by me and somebody else, and we put it all together. Then we had somebody make the 3D version of this. Actually, this present logo right here. This is not going to be here anymore, and that's pretty exciting for us to see the company transition into the new brand and where it's going to take us from here. But the other thing was the colors. The colors were just like, I mean, I was so stuck on the colors because it just represented.
It was like a standard, I guess.
Yeah, it was like a standard. It was tradition, call it, or call it, just very original. I felt, and so to just move away from that and just be like on a whole different color scheme, I mean, just really blew my mind. The person that did our rebranding, one advice he told me was that you're not rebranding for yourself. You have to think in mind what the demographics are like. Your brand is speaking to an audience. It's not speaking to you.
Yeah.
If you're going to rebrand it for yourself, you're going to do it all wrong.
Right.
And so you have to take in consideration what the market is like. Where you're located.
Your competitors too.
Yeah, I mean,
how many competitors are using the same color? That's
exactly, and it's pretty amazing about how just something like colors can change from area to area.
Yeah.
So some colors may work in a certain area, like LA, may not work in a place like New York or Miami or Chicago. It's going to be a whole different palette of colors out there. Cartoons on the wraps, right? Logos. Cartoons might not work. Well, not saying that they won't work, but in our area right here, I mean, every wrap van has a cartoon on it, right? I mean, it's totally saturated with cartoons. So when we went to go rebrand, I mean, we went the opposite way, where we don't have a cartoon on our wrap, and it's simply for that reason. I mean, I know you had designed a cartoon for us, and that was great. And I mean, not saying we can't use that, but we're not gonna, maybe we'll stick him on the website or somewhere, but to use them primarily on the wrap, we didn't want to do that because it would blend us in with the other.
Yeah, because
companies.
at that time we were still following the same color scheme, but what you decided, actually, in my opinion, it's a good route, because then you're going to be separated from
everybody.
Your competitors. Yeah, exactly.
The colors we picked, nobody has those on the van.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. And it took me almost 2 weeks to decide on that, believe it or not, it took me almost 2 weeks because I just could not stomach it. You know, it took me, and I'm sure, you know, for the branding companies, it's like, it's normal to see that type of pushback from ownership or from the stakeholders in the organization, that they're like, oh, you know, we're not ready to move in that direction. But I mean, you got to be revolutionary in your approach, because if you're not, you're just going to be you know, evolutionary, right? I mean, there's not going to be much of a difference. So you got to make that choice. Do you want to be evolutionary in your brand, or do you want to be revolutionary in your brand?
Yeah.
I think you really have two options.
Yep. I've been in that situation where when it comes to logos, one of the questions I do ask, are you married to that logo? Yes or no? And they tell me no. If they tell me no, then it's easy to do the transition. But if they tell me yes, then that's hard. So I get your feeling.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sal, for stopping by today and sharing
Yeah,
a
no
little bit
problem.
of your feedback. And I'm pretty sure this is going to help businesses, you know, to make hard choices.
Right.
You know, make it easier for them.
Well, I mean, you know, last but not least, you know, I want to say that, you know, we are going to be starting another podcast, and you know, we hope that, you know, your audience listens to us on that podcast. There,
Exactly.
and you know, hopefully it turns out to be a success for us. Thank you, Evie.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys.